Hello, I'm Crafty Patti. Today's video I'm making some nice big storage baskets. You can make them in all different sizes. This time I wanted to make it with a slit for the handle. So it hides the handle and it keeps it nice and flat on the top, but the handle is still there inside. So I'll show you how I do that. I'll also show you some embellishments. And all the supplies will be in the description box below. And I'll also leave a link to show you how we cut fabric on the buys if you don't know how to do that. So keep watching and let's get started. I start all my rope bowls in the same way by taking a piece of tape, wrapping it around the end, because this ravels out a lot and it's really hard to hold down all those little frayed ends when you're doing your first round. So once you've got that taped off, just feel with your finger where the tape is, and you're just leaving a very small amount on, just enough to contain all those little ends. And now that you've secured your end, we can now safely push this into a really tight little bend and then start to wrap that around into a circle. You might want to put it down on the table, and it's easier to just wrap that around, and it keeps it nice and flat for your first portion of your bowl. And then while you've got it down on the table, when you've done about 4 rounds, take your safety pins and just push it through to make sure that those stay in place when we take it to the sewing machine. The first thing we're going to do is sew through with a straight stitch through this way and through this way to secure those first few rounds. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back into the second round so it gives the sewing machine something to grab onto. And I'm going to start sewing from there. That gives the presser foot something to sit on. I'm going to come forward, and then I'm going to go back to catch that last row, and then forward again. And back stitch. I've sewed through this way, and now I'll come down through this way. Same thing. Let's go into the second round first. I have a Husqvarna S215 on this particular machine, and for the very first start of the first part of the round, I'm going to put it at a 4. And on my width, you just take it up as far as it will go. Mine happens to be 5.5. And on my machine, this is the zigzag, so I'm just going to move it down so we're on the zigzag position. With our cord coming off the right side always, we're going to line up the break and our presser foot in between these two sections of our ropes where the ropes come together. That's your guide for your whole sewing process. So let's put that into our machine and try to match it up so we've got it sitting on each side of those two pieces of rope. Let's just go forward once and back and forward. Now this first part of the process is a little tricky to get around. You're going to be lifting up the back of your presser foot release bar and turning around with your fingers so we get this first section done. And then once we get a little bit wider, then it's smooth sailing. So let's just very slowly go around. Once we've done one, we're going to be lifting it up, moving it around, watching where your break in your foot is so you can catch both ropes. Don't worry about this wrapping well. We're going to fix that in a minute. Just continue to work it around to get those first few rows sewn. And if this is bothering you, then all you have to do is lift up the back of the release bar and let it twirl around. So what I'm doing now is using my fingers to guide this around. So as I'm sewing, I'm pulling this way, just enough to guide it, to bring it around. And again, I'm making sure that this break is in between these two spaces here. Now this is starting to come off the edge, and I don't have a tray or a quilting bed or whatever you want to call it to extend. So I've just got whatever I can find, magazines, boards, books, whatever, anything that will keep this level. If this isn't level, you're going to get a bend in your bowl and it's not going to sit nice for you. And now you can see my fingers are down here, and I'm just letting this rope guide through my thumb like this. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and I thought, well, let's for fun add some color. These strips of fabric I have cut on the bias. You can see it's got lots of stretch. If you don't know how to cut strips on the bias, then please watch my video on how to cut fabric on the bias for your rope bowls. You get a nice little corner like this. To start adding my piece of fabric, I will have it horizontal to my rope. Here's my little corner. I'm going to tuck that under. So it's right under. And then fold this one right over it and make sure that first part of it is nice and secure. And then once it's good and secure, I can start bringing it down and angling it down. And then all you need to be doing is covering half of this. Not even that, you don't even have to cover half of it. The other thing I like to do is I like to make sure that my rope is coming straight down and my fabric is coming straight, that I'm not having to flip it up and over so much. So what I've got here is just my cord coming straight down, and you'll see that it's a lot easier to wrap it and it's a lot faster. You're not having to flip it all over the place. All right, so I will continue wrapping this. We'll sew this in place, and then we'll keep sewing. And when I get to the end, I like to put on one of these clips that I did find from the dollar store quite a while ago. And I like them because it's got the round little barrel in there, and it holds the the rope really nicely. So here I am at the end of my wrap, so I'm just going to attach that, and then it'll hold it secure till I get to that part for sewing. So let's continue sewing now, and now we've got some pretty color in there. Take my clip off, make sure my end is secured, and I like to make sure that this little tuck in is on the inside between the two so it holds it together. So I'm just going to make sure that that's in the middle. Here's my last part, and I'm close enough that I can just grab that, push it in, and bring it up so I know I can lock that last little tip in. And I'm going to just put little bits of fabric here and there. I'm not going to put the whole thing in this fabric. I just want little accents here and there. I wanted my base about 11 inches. So I'm just about there, and that's about 28 centimeters. So I'm going to stop there, and now we're going to form the sides. I want my sides quite straight, so I'm going to bring it right up to the side of my machine as far as it can go, and I will now continue to sew around, and we'll now form the sides of our storage bin. And just keep going around and around, and you'll start to see that the edges are starting to come up. I will be running out of bobbin thread very soon, so I'm just going to back stitch here, and we will fill up my bobbin. Added my new bobbin, so I'll just go back about an inch behind where we left off, just to make sure it's good and secure. And we'll back stitch, and away we go again. I've run out of my fabric on this piece, so I want to add another piece. So here's my second piece I'm going to add. I'm just going to tuck that halfway up the last one. Just sneak that in so it's got a little bend so it is secure in there, and then this will fold over, and I will continue to wrap this one. That will secure the first one, and away we go again. I'm coming to the end of my first section of rope that I've used, and this particular rope frays a lot. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did in the very beginning of the bowl, and I'm going to add tape. And I'll do the same to the rope that I'm adding to this one. So again with a piece of tape, and then feeling down and cutting most of it off as well. I'll just sew up closer to the end here. And now what I'm going to be doing is I want these to be really tight together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this one, it's joined right now, but I'm going to make it bump up a little bit. I'm trying to get it so I can see with the camera. So I'm just going to move this out a little bit and move this one down to about here, making sure I've still got that little bit of a bump coming up. And now I know that when I push these back in, it's going to be really nice and tight. Using your scissors if you need to, just to make sure that stays right in there. Don't sew onto your scissors, of course. And then right up to the next one. Now I'm going to back stitch just to make sure that's good and secure. Take your pin out and you're ready to go again. When your bowl starts to work away from the end of your sewing machine, it will start to flop over. So you want to keep it straight up and down, parallel. So what I do is I bring my hand back to here and I use my arm here to support it so it stays straight up and down, and I continue to sew around. And continue adding as much fabric as you want for your basket or your storage bin. I'm starting to run out of cord again. And another way to join the cording is to just tape it together. I'll add one on one side, attach the other one on the other side, butt it up tightly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more fabric, and that will cover my tape entirely. Nobody will even know it's there. So let's add another piece of fabric right here. And when you get to the tape section, really give it a tug and make sure it's quite tight in there, because you don't want it being thicker than the rest of your basket rope. It will be a little bit thicker, but you don't want it bulging. So once you're secure, then you can continue your wrap, and then you'll just sew right through that, and you've added some more rope. Working with the large storage bins, they're a little bit more cumbersome to work with than your smaller baskets. So what I do is I grab my hand up on the top here and I lift it up, and I'm starting at the back. So I lift it up on the back, I start sewing. And my hand is coming forward as I sew. And I go back to the back again, lift it up, and bring it around. When you've got the depth that you want, let's take it off, backstitch. And we'll take it off and we'll measure it out to where we place our handles. Now to find the middle of your sides, I just like to fold it in half like this, squish it up, and put a pin where your ends are. So I'm going to have about a 5-inch opening, or that would be about pretty close to 13 centimeters approximately. It doesn't have to be perfect. So there's my middle mark. So I'm just going to put another pin here. And there's my first one, and I'll do the same for the other side. I can take out my middle pin now. And forward, and I'm going to sew up to my first pin. So there's my first pin. Take that out. So when you get to the first pin, I've taken that pin out, and I'm going to back stitch to keep that nice and secure, because it's the stress point where the handle is. And we'll do that a couple times. And then have your needle end up on this cord here. And then we're going to pull this cord away and just bring the stitching only into this cord here. So turn the basket just slightly and have it come into here now. And then you can straighten out. So I'll be attaching this to my other point here, which is right here. So I'll just tuck it in here and we can take out the other pin. And now we'll sew up to this point. Lift up my presser foot, tuck this rope right under, tight under the presser foot, and I can take out my pin now. And now I can angle it so it's pointing out now. So now we're going to point this way. So it comes into both of these ropes and not just going into the one. So I'll angle it up a bit, making sure they're both tightly together. And once I've got it together, I will then back stitch, make sure that handle's secure a couple times, and away we go around to the other handle. And now angle it so it only sews into this cord and back straight. And this is where I'm going to place it to match up where my other pin is right here. And then when we get to our handle, we just follow it along and join the two together. And I'll make a few more passes. I'll make 4 passes to make this handle wide enough so it's strong enough to hold up. So around we go 2 more times. And for the last part of the rope, I'm just going to have it angle into the first part of where the handle starts. So I'm just going to take it and let's see, we'll cut it off about here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave off a little bit of the inside of this so it angles down, so it blends in nicely to the basket. So I'm going to come into the end of this and just take some of that off. Just so it angles in that little bit off the end. Take off a little tiny bit more. Okay, so let's work up to that end. And then I'm just going to bring that right in. And then backs. Push in all the little ends again. And back. I'm going to keep going till we get all the little ends tucked in. I'll go a little bit closer to the edge this time. And angle. And back. And then the rest you can just trim off with scissors to clean it up. And so there's your handle from the outside. Instead of a handle coming up like this, it's coming out, and you can slip your hand underneath to grab the handle like so. Here's the marking for my first handle. Just work my way up to it. I'm going to take that out. And now I'm going to work my basket this way, so I only sew into this one here. We're going to go back and sew into these two. And now I can straighten it out again. And then I'll sew up to this pin. And I'm just making sure my cord is tucked in the same way along. And I'm going to angle my basket this way. Make sure that is tucked in. Use my scissors just to keep that nice and tucked in there. So we catch it, even it out. I'm going to back stitch and come forward and back stitch again, just to reinforce this section. And then over and sew up to the next handle. Sewing these two together and not this one. And now I'm just going to keep going around 2 more times, or depending on how much cord I've got, and we'll finish up our handles. So I've decided what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this cord all with the orange fabric, and then I'm going to do kind of like a wavy kind of design around like this. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of pre-measuring how much I have to wrap. And here we are back at the front, and I might just do maybe a couple little curls in here. So I'm going to cut it off here just for a little bit of extra, just to make sure. And I know how much I have to wrap in my fabric. I'll go ahead and wrap that, and then we'll get back to you. To make it easier for wrapping, I've just placed my storage basket to the left, and I've left my cord under the presser foot, and that just gives me something that I can have staples so I can do a nice fast wrap. Now this is the rope that is going to be my decorative finish, and I've just left a couple inches that isn't wrapped so I can get it under the sewing machine. And I like to secure this with a zigzag stitch all the way along it, just so it stays secure and it doesn't unravel when it's on my basket. So I'll do a back stitch, and away we go. I'm going to go all the way down the cord. I'm at the end of my cord here, so what I'm going to do is just keep wrapping, but wrap way past so there's not even any cord at the bottom here. So this is what I ended up with. I just kept going around and evening it out till I went all the way around and had something that I could finish off with. So I started here and then looped it down, and I wanted to make sure that I looped right below my handle, up and down, and again the same, looped it down from my handle, and ended up with just turning it into here and finishing it off. So now I'm going to come in with my needle and thread and secure all this to the basket, and then we'll be finished. So I've threaded my needle with a double thread, and I'm going to come in through the back first. And what I'm trying to do is just find a place where I can come right in between two rows, because that's a lot easier than trying to get through the actual rope. So I'll start in the back, and I'll just come right around through into the basket. And just keep going around about every half an inch. I hope that gave you some more ideas on different things to do with your rope baskets and bins. Use them for your craft supplies, use them for a toy box. Until next time, bye-bye.